Testing, testing.
Okay. Done speaking. Your video stopped. Your microphone is unmuted. I don't know what it's doing.
I think you should be unmuted. Give it a shot there.
I don't know what to do. Samsung is speaking.
Yes, Samsung, we can hear you.
Done speaking. Your microphone is unmuted. Your video stopped. I don't know what this is doing. Done speaking.
Craig, testing.
We hear you.
A lot of people tuned into this.
Vic, are you going to start the meeting?
I am. I'm waiting for one more minute.
Okay.
In case anyone has the over under, we're waiting to get to 40.
How much do we have to bet?
All right, we're going to get started. So welcome, everyone. I'm Vic DeLuca. I'm a member of the Maplewood Township Committee, and I chair the Engineering, Public Works, and Planning Committee, which is the committee that will be discussing and working on this potential bike lane project. I'm going to ask Mayor Adams if she'd like to say hello.
Thank you, Vic. Hi, everybody. As Vic said, I'm Nancy Adams. I'm serving as mayor right now of Maplewood and chair of the Township Committee, and a member of Engineering, Public Works, and Planning Subcommittee. So we've been talking a lot about pedestrian safety and traffic calming for all the 9 years I've been on the governing body so far. So this is yet another iteration. So we won't, I'm going to let Vic run the meeting, and because it's his group, and he'll gather information and he'll explain the process and what we will and won't do at this meeting, for example. But thanks for being here and taking the time out of your evening. Thanks. Thanks, Vic.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to recognize we have the Deputy Mayor on, Malia Herman. Looks like she's on the phone. I know Township Committee woman Deb Engel is joining us, and Township Committeeman Dean Daffis is on vacation. Otherwise, he'd be on here too. So even though we have a majority, this is not a public meeting where action will be taken. This is a community meeting, but we have a majority of the township here. I'm going to run through the agenda and explain to you what we're going to be doing here. So here we are. We're doing the welcome, the introduction, talk about the meeting format and the goals in a bit. Then our township engineer will just talk briefly about complete streets and what we're doing here in Maplewood to approach street design. Our business administrator, Weary, will talk about the bike network concept. And then Mr. Kittner will be coming back to introduce our consultants and talk a little bit about that process. And then we'll hear from our consultants. They'll be the ones focusing on the project with maps and what have you. Then we'll do questions and answers, and we'll have some closing remarks. We haven't set a time limit here, but let's try to end this at 9 o'clock. I think an hour and a half is probably the maximum that we can all, given to this tonight. We are going to have other meetings. So, and let me go to that, back here to the agenda. So let's just talk about the meeting format. So, again, please make sure you Zoom, you have the audio out when you're here in the Zoom meeting. We're going to ask at the point we get to questions and public comment, please raise your hand. We'll recognize you. We're going to ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes, questions and comments. And then if a participant hasn't spoken, we'll recognize that person before a second comment or a third comment from a previous speaker. We are recording this and we'll be posting it on the township website. So what are our goals for the meeting? Basically we want to hear from you. This is a community meeting. We know that there are opinions on both sides. And then there's just some people who want to find out what we're talking about. So we ask that you respect everyone, not get into any kind of personal back and forth. Everyone's opinion is valued by the township committee, and in making our final decision, we will consider all the comments. We'll probably hear suggestions. We'll hear concerns, I'm sure. And then we'll also get recommendations from our professional staff, and that'll be what we are going to be using to make the decision. Here's the timeline. So we're having our first meeting tonight. And just to tell you why we broke it into 3 sections, although you can talk about all of this, all of Parker Avenue if you want to tonight. We don't want to limit what you want to speak about, but we're really focusing on the section between Maplewood Avenue to Prospect Street. And the reason being is that section is a combination of residential, business, and institutional. And some part of that has no parking already. Other parts of it have time-limited parking on one side or the other. Then on March 10th, which is next Monday, we're going to have another meeting, and that's going to focus on the section between Prospect to Boyden Avenue. That is primarily residential, except for a couple of religious institutions. And there's parking on both sides of the street for most of it. So that's going to be a sort of a different conversation. And then lastly, at the end of the month, on March 24th, we're going to have another meeting, and that's going to focus on Parker from Boyden Avenue to Irvington Avenue, the business district there. Again, that's a little different. It's a little tighter there. There seems to be more on-street parking. We have parking for the park there. We also have parking for some of the businesses that are just off the corner of Boyden and Parker. On April 9th, we'll take all the information we're getting from these 3 community meetings. We'll discuss it at our regular monthly meeting of the Engineering, Public Works, and Planning Subcommittee. And that's a virtual meeting, and that's at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then hopefully, if things go well, we will bring the discussion to the full Township Committee. That will be an in-person meeting on April 15th at 7:30 p.m. in Town Hall. There'll be a further opportunity for public comment, and then the Township Committee will discuss the concept and any next steps. In May, the Township Committee will approve a capital budget. But right now, tentatively, the budget includes money for bike lanes. Whether it makes it to the end, that's all going to be part of this process. If the bike lanes are approved, we will do the construction bids, publicizing them and awarding the contract in the summer. And in the fall, the construction of the bike lanes will be completed. So we're looking to do this. If we do this, we're looking to do this within 2025. Just to give you some bearings as we talk tonight, just so you know what we're talking about, because sometimes our consultants are going to mention north, south, east, west. So north is the high school side of the building. It's also the side that has the odd street numbers on Parker. South is the 7-Eleven side. And I'm sorry, south is the even street. So that's an error there. It should be south is the even street numbers on Parker. West is towards Maplewood Avenue and the South Mountain Reservation. And east is towards the Irvington Avenue Business District and New York City. So that's the plan for tonight. We've dealt with the introductions, we've dealt with the welcome, the format, and the goals. And now we're going to move to Township Engineer Paul Kittner, who's going to give us just a brief comments on complete street approach here.
Committeeman DeLuca, thank you. And I'll try to keep this brief. I see a lot of people. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions here. So I was asked to talk about complete streets. I may deviate slightly from that, get into a little history, but I'm sure Mr. DeLuca will let me know if I'm going out of bounds here. Prior to 2009, the state took a car-centric approach towards design and construction. I think, it's not to say that pedestrians weren't considered, but it wasn't, the same emphasis as it is now. It was more car-centric. And what complete streets is really, it's looking at people of all age groups. It's looking at all modes of transportation, whether it's pedestrians, bicyclists, public transportation, or motorists. And it's designing facilities that accommodate all of these uses. That's really what complete streets is. I think certainly when you look at a street that's designed with complete streets, it operates more efficiently. It operates with more volume. It accommodates more people. By encouraging bicycles, for example, you could reduce congestion. So that's complete streets in a nutshell. We're going to get into it with the design, and Mr. Downey's going to present this, but I'm also going to provide comments. I'll talk very briefly about the history. And the township did incorporate a bike plan in 2010. I think it introduced more of those share the lane sharrows. And I think most bicyclists found that they weren't as effective as a dedicated lane. They prefer a dedicated lane. In 2012, the township passed their own complete streets policy. And in 2016 and 2017, the township performed municipal aid grants and reconstructed Parker Avenue. We did a number of pedestrian improvements, ramp upgrades at the intersections. That was from Irvington Ave to Prospect Street, over 2 municipal aid grants. In 2018 and 2019, we incorporated a Safe Routes to Schools program where we upgraded handicap ramps and incorporated push-button ped signs. In 2020, we reconstructed the concrete refuge island that's located at Boyden Avenue and made it more in Parker Avenue and made it more ADA compliant. And in 2023, we improved daylighting of the intersection of Parker and Orchard Road. In 2023, we also collected data, with dynamic for Parker Avenue, including speed and volume data, to come up with the bike plan that you see before you. In 24, we installed the 4-way stop sign at Parker, Burr, and Suffolk. So that'll give you a little context, a little history of where we're at. Why is Parker Avenue selected for complete streets? There's a number of reasons. It really connects a whole bunch of things. It connects the business corridor in Irvington Avenue. It connects St. Kim Church, Borden Park, the residential along Parker Avenue and surrounding streets, Clinton Elementary School, the Maplewood Jewish Center, Ethical Cultural Society, Prospect Street, CHS High School, commercial shops and buildings on West Parker, including the YMCA and the Gleason property. It also incorporates the overflow parking for CHS and the Greenway, which was constructed a part of it last year. And of course, it connects Maplewood Ave, which opens the doors for future bike lane improvements. I want to stress to everyone that bicycles are legal on our streets. They have a right to be in our streets, and that's part of the complete streets. If you take your time and look at the bike racks at CHS, you know that there's a lot of bikes being used. A lot of our student body are using bicycles. And I went the other day, there must have been 30 or 40 bikes. And this is when it was cold out. In the summertime, I'm sure that number goes up. I want to stress too that this plan is not just for bicycle safety. It squeezes the travel lanes and also performs traffic calming. It also enhances pedestrian safety by upgrading all the crosswalk striping and signage, and I think would be a significant improvement to the corridor. I think also, I just want to mention a few things on the plan, and we'll get into this more as well. With bike lanes, parking is not allowed. So it's going to have an inherent impact on parking, and we could get into that as well. But if you look at the corridor that we're focusing on tonight, the majority of it is no stopping and standing or is restricted parking during school days, for example. So just looking at it holistically, I think this project itself, when you look at the projects we've done in the past, this is truly a complete streets approach that we would be implementing for this road. And you'll see it in the design. Hopefully we can answer everyone's questions. With that, I think I'm going to have more comments. I may interject as Mr. Downey's given his presentation, but at this time, I'd like to present Patrick Downey.
Hold on, Paul, we're going to have Patrick Weary speak, the other Patrick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's all right.
Mr. Weary, I didn't mean to steal your spotlight there.
Thanks, Mr. Kidner, Mr. DeLuca. So I want to share the total bike network that we have planned for the town. This is obviously a concept at this stage, but it's can be a guiding document for how we build this out. Parker Ave being the first earliest one we have where we have dedicated bike lanes. And so I'll share that now. We'll just describe a little bit of our approach to this. So we first talked about this network as part of the 2010 plan that Mr. Kittner had referenced, and it looked to connect parks and schools, municipal amenities, like the community center, the train station, our special improvement districts being Maplewood Village and Springfield Avenue. And so we looked at the most traveled roadways and also the size of the roadways. And the preference recently is to move towards dedicated bike lanes because they are the safest for the bikers and they do most for traffic calming. And so this is a public document that we can share, but it shows what could become bike lanes throughout Maplewood. And it also shows a legend where we look at the width of roadways needed for whether it be dedicated bike lanes with parking, just dedicated bike lanes, no parking, sharrows. And so we'll use this as we consider when to start to engage the public around future roadways for bike improvements. That could be like Parker Avenue when we're looking to do overall traffic improvements to, either reduce speed, manage flows, increase pedestrian visibility, and that's what we've been talking about along Parker Avenue. It could be considered when we're looking to repave a roadway. So something like Prospect Street, where we expect to pave it in the coming years, we can now start to look at Prospect Street for, is it a viable candidate for bike lanes, and do we want to start engaging with the public in the process like we're doing now for Parker? It could be to connect to other infrastructure, like South Orange is bringing their greenway south to us, and it's going to connect through Jesuits Field. So we have an interest now in looking at network roadways along possibly Denell and past the train station. So there'll be a lot of different reasons why we begin to talk about roadways in different areas of town, but we want to have an overall map so that it'll guide our approach so that we roll this out somewhat methodically and with a plan for a larger bike network.
Thank you, Patrick.
That is all from me.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Paul, I'm going to turn it right back to you again. We talk about dynamic traffic as being our traffic consultants. Could you just explain what that means and then introduce Patrick? And I don't know if John is here, but just
Sure. So, given the breadth of their experience, Dynamic Traffic has been selected as our professional service consulting engineer for traffic engineering. Now, we work closely with Dynamic on traffic designs. We have, complete oversight and work with them, provide input, but, we're relying on their expertise. I've known John McCormick for many, many years. And Mr. Downey, I've known him for a number of years now too, and I'm highly impressed with both of them. They're very good traffic engineers.
so Patrick Dowie, take it away.
All righty, thank you for that warm welcome, Paul and Vic. Once again, Pat Downey with Dynamic Traffic. Happy to be here. We love assisting the township with these types of projects. It's really our bread and butter. We're excited to start rolling this one out. Gonna just share my screen, assuming I have the ability to do so. There we go. Let me know if everyone can see that.
Yes.
Gonna really roll this out in a two-step process. First, I just want to go over at a high level some of the planning and research efforts that have gone into establishing baseline conditions that we're working with here, then segueing that into the proposed plan. So this graphic you see on the screen is really the compilation of several months of effort to understand existing conditions related to traffic volumes, travel speeds, crash history, and parking utilization along Parker Avenue. I'll kind of give some quick highlights for each of those items. Starting with traffic volumes, we're looking at about 5,000 to 7,500 vehicles per day for this corridor. Depending on the location, it obviously varies a little bit, but in general, 5,000 or greater. Just to put that in perspective, some of the lower order bike facilities you might think of, shared lanes with sharrows, that sort of things, are most appropriate on lower volume roadways. Think 2,000 to 3,000 vehicles per day or less generally. So we're really a higher order than that here, hence, the proposal to institute dedicated bike lanes. Looking at crash history, up and down the corridor, it's obviously concentrated most at some of the major intersections, particularly the signalized ones. But I do want to note some of those have involved cyclists and pedestrians over the years. Between the two of them, it accounts for about 7% of the crashes that occurred in a 5-year period that we took a look at between 2019 and 2024. Speeds, 25 mile per hour speed limit with 85th percentile speeds. That's kind of a design metric used commonly in the industry to represent what you should design for, is ranging higher than that, 28 to 34. So between 3 to 10 miles per hour over that posted speed limit, which is obviously something we want to take into consideration with any design we put forth. And then parking utilization, which is illustrated by this graph you see at the bottom of your screen. Essentially, we took a look at parking utilization throughout the corridor over the course of a full typical weekday, plotted it on a graph. What you see in green, which is most of the graph, is essentially low parking utilization, under 50% of the spaces being utilized. So when we look to weigh the benefits of bike lanes versus potential cons of eliminating parking, this is something we always like to take a look at and understand, okay, how much parking activity is actually taking place, what's being displaced by a project like this. So with that, kind of setting the stage for some of the proposed improvements, I'm going to flip to the concept plan some of you might be familiar with. We'll walk through all the pages that pertain to the section we're discussing tonight, but I put this one on the screen just to give a little bit of a preview because it shows a couple of different existing conditions that we're working with here. So starting with the...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Could you see if you can zoom in a little bit,
Sure.
as much as you can so that people can yeah, that's better. Appreciate
I'm
it.
going to center it up. What you see at the top of your screen is existing conditions with the bottom of the screen being proposed. So starting with some of the physical geometry, the cartway width varies throughout this corridor between about 30 feet to 34 feet. To the west of Valley Street, you can see there's no striped shoulders in the existing condition, essentially 15-foot lanes in each direction. To the east of Valley Street, for a lot of the corridor, you have 4 to 5 foot narrow shoulders with roughly 11-foot lanes or greater for lane widths. There's a variety of parking restrictions in place out there. Just within the section we're discussing tonight, there's at least 4 different ones, all moving towards similar goals, mostly to restrict parking in front of the high school during school times on weekdays primarily. Bikes are, as Paul mentioned before, legally permitted to use the roadway as it is, whereas there's no formal bicycle accommodations provided. Obviously no bike lanes, no sharrows, etc. And the sidewalks themselves are not, bike width paths that can be utilized. So while there's biking occurring, they're really not accommodated in the existing condition. So when we look to the proposed, some of the key goals are obviously to provide a safe bicycle facility. And while we're out there, improve things for motorists and enhance pedestrian safety as well, knowing they're always a priority. And keeping in mind the constraints that we're working with as well. One of the key constraints beholden to for this project is trying to work as best we can within the existing cartway of Parker Avenue. We're not looking to make this a major roadway widening project to accommodate every single feature. It's really making the best use of the space we have available. So looking at the proposed conditions, you see illustrated on the bottom, some of the key features are consistent 5-foot wide bike lanes oriented along the curb lines in both the eastbound and westbound directions throughout the corridor, with one narrow exception toward the east end of the limits outside of the section we're discussing today. You see the individual bicycle symbols. I'll zoom in a little further on the proposed are not only the bicycle and arrow symbol to denote the bike lane and the accompanying signage, but also enhanced with the green pavement markings beneath them. The minimum you could do, the green's not required. Some situations with very high bike activity get full green lanes the whole way. We think this is a fairly appropriate middle ground approach for this location, where the bicycle symbols themselves are enhanced with the green to bring a little bit more attention to the condition to motorists. Additionally, through the major intersections, specifically the signalized intersections, we have the dashed bike lane extensions, these dashed green sections through the intersection, very similar to what you would think of as a white pedestrian crosswalk, but green to denote it's a bicycle facility. So vehicles turning through the intersection are, again, made aware that bicycles could be traveling through them, and they should be aware of them. Some additional benefits throughout the corridor. Part of making the number one, introducing shoulders to the western section where they do not exist, and widening the shoulders from 4 to 5 feet on the eastern section where they do, is it narrows the travel lanes. That's generally associated with a traffic calming improvement. With narrower travel lanes come more driver attention and typically lower speeds. Additionally, all the crosswalks throughout the corridor at a minimum would be refreshed with high visibility crosswalk striping. The example you see on your screen currently is what we call the ladder style. That's one of the high visibility options, and there are some other ones. And there are some additional crosswalks being added to some of the unsignalized intersections that currently do not provide any. So it's certainly striving to address the complete streets goals that have been laid out so far, trying to accommodate all the users that we're looking at here, not just motorists, but also cyclists and pedestrians. So that's the plan at a high level. With that, I'll walk through from west to east through the limits we're here to discuss tonight. I'll defer to the township reps on the call if you want to jump in with questions as we go, or if I'll just get to the end, we'll take them all at the end.
Take them all at the end.
Sounds good. So starting at the western limit of Maplewood Avenue, which you see here, I'll give it a click in. This is, again, the western section with no shoulders provided. So here, I think it has probably the most significant traffic calming benefit, since not only are the shoulders being widened, but they're actually being provided for the first time. Bike lane markings throughout, refreshing of centerline striping, refreshing of side street striping, stop bars, center lines, stop word markings, etc. The refresh sign package, not only for the bike lanes, but upgrading, stop signs, no parking signs, etc., where appropriate. Also to note in this section, the hatched gray areas you see to the top left and bottom right, those are the greenway planned paths. So this is a pretty important block just to ensure bicycle continuity between those two locations. Moving our way east to where we started, showing the Valley Street intersection. This is one of the key locations because it's one of the major crossings along Parker Avenue. So we think some of the supplemental features to enhance the bike lane, specifically those bike lane extensions through the intersection, are key. And this really divides the section into two distinct areas, with the west having no shoulders today and the east having shoulders in the existing condition being widened to provide the bike lane. You'll also see to the bottom right of your screen one of the first upgraded school crossing signs. Throughout the whole corridor plan, there's upgraded school and pedestrian crossing signs, depending on whether the intersection is just a typical crosswalk or an actual designated school crossing. Moving further east along the high school frontage, you'll see this is kind of one of the key areas we think will be most improved when it comes to the parking restriction. There's currently no parking in various sections of this block, either from 9 to 11 a.m. and 1 to 3 p.m. on school days. Essentially, some of the higher desirable times for that school activity to be parking there. Yet there is some parking activity occurring. So that's obviously going to conflict pretty significantly with the proposal to provide bike lanes. However, it should be reiterated that when you look at the bike racks in front of the high school, they're generally pretty well utilized. So there are bicyclists currently utilizing Parker Avenue and likely other streets to get here. So we have to remember it is important to accommodate them, since they have the legal right to use the roadway as it is. Toward the east of Academy Street really begins more of a predominantly residential character. We do have one more intersection to work through, being Prospect Street, which again gets that similar enhanced treatment with the bike lane extensions, full signage and striping package, complete with crosswalks, as you would expect for a major signalized intersection. And then to the east of that, you really get to, I guess, what you would consider the bread and butter layout throughout the rest of the blocks, moving eastward, which is those 5-foot bike lanes, narrowed up travel lanes, and improved pedestrian crossings. Getting just outside the limits here. This is an example I was referring to where Summit Avenue currently has no crosswalk to cross Parker Avenue. This is just one of several locations where that would be introduced as part of this project. So I guess unless you want me to go further, I think that's a pretty comprehensive overview of what we've done to date, what the proposed plan is, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank
Mr.
you.
Downey, I have a quick question. So, for example, Prospect and Parker, it's a very busy intersection, wider intersection. This plan is a work in progress. Do you envision us looking at this with the possibility of even improving some of the design beyond what's shown now? Mountable bollards, for example, at the approaches, maybe something along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a few key locations along the corridor, this certainly being one of them, that warrants additional attention as this gets advanced from a concept plan to a formal, construction level drawing. I think all those ideas will be even fully vetted, more so than they have been now. Prospect Street also has the benefit of having an upcoming repaving of its own. So between this Parker Avenue project and presumably a future Prospect Street upgrade, I think that intersection is certainly due for an upgrade and we'll receive one.
Thank you.
Okay, Patrick, can you stop sharing?
Yes, sir. There you go.
Okay. So we're now going to open it up. Just have that ready to put back up because I'm sure we're going to get questions and you're going to want to show in your responses. So we're now going to open it up to comments and questions. I see Andrew is the first. So Andrew, go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks so much. Very impressive presentation and plan. My question is about the area right in front of Columbia High School. As a parent of high schoolers, I will admit that I occasionally do pause in front of the high school building to drop off or pick kids up. How do you see that bike path interacting with the tendency of drivers to use that as a temporary stopping lane for that purpose? And is there any way to prevent that happening? Because I expect that folks are going to be very reluctant to discontinue that practice. What strategies could be used to make sure everyone is safe, and also there's not a huge pushback from the community who's been used to doing that for many years?
Paul, would you like me to jump in on that one, or do you want to take that one?
Yeah, Patrick, why don't you show it, and then Paul, you can jump in too.
Okay.
Sure. So I'll just put that back on the screen briefly. So we can all be looking at the same thing. So essentially, the short answer is a lot of that activity now is really happening because there is no better option. So what are people to do? It's the option that makes sense. So in addition to this project, there's other discussions taking place with the school about where we could potentially relocate that activity to a more formal, dedicated location. Nothing ready to share at this moment that I'm aware of, but that's definitely a concern we're well aware of, and we're looking for alternatives just so that actually has somewhere to go to.
And Patrick, you're thinking of bollards there?
Yes. So I know there have been questions throughout the development of this plan about where supplemental features like flex bollards along the bike lane can be implemented. In this particular location, I think it's definitely warranted. So generally between Academy Street and Valley Street, we would be looking to upgrade this bike lane to have flexible bollards located along that bike lane stripe, just to further enhance its visibility, provide a little more comfort to cyclists, and also to further deter that illegal parking activity that has been observed.
I think, yeah, I mean, the exact detail and design would have to still be vetted with the school and worked out with the school, but that's our concept. I mean, anyone who, goes there when school is out, or even when school is, in the beginning in the morning, it's congested. You can't get through it. So it's a very good comment, Mr. Howell. Thank you for the comment, and it's something that we're working on.
Okay.
Thank you.
On my screen, I have Matthew is next.
Hi, thank you guys so much for this. I was just wondering if you have considered or are considering at all a stop sign on Parker and Academy. I know there's stop signs on Academy, but none on Parker. It's intersection that's not really easy to cross unless there's a crossing guard in the morning. So I just want to know if that's something that's being considered.
Pat, you want to take that?
Yeah, so at this time, we have not done a full evaluation of that. There are specific warrants set forward, by the FHWA for when you can and cannot use an always stop treatment. My initial reaction is I do not think it would qualify for that. You're really looking for roads where the two roadways are of similar character, volume, intensity, etc. That's really not the case in this location. Academy Street carries much less than Parker. So, while that could have some traffic calming benefits, it's not the right tool for this particular location. We're trying to use some of the other tools in the tool belt.
Okay, I have Brianne.
Hi, I'm on 44 Parker. So obviously this is a huge impact for me. I do love biking, but there's a lot of things that I'm not sure if you're keeping into consideration. Obviously, I know everyone's going to talk about the high school and all the congestion around that, which is not going to go away. People are going to park on the side streets, and you can't even drive through them because they're so narrow and it's like one ways. It's a mess, even right now. So it's a problem now, but that's obvious stuff. I think if you're thinking from the homeowner's perspective, a lot of the houses on across the street, so the south side of the street, we have really big lots. So that means in the fall we have, I don't know, and then this is a question for you guys, like, can we put, right now we have massive amount of leaves that go in the front of our yard, the front yard, in what would be the bike lane. And it takes up like most of the street. It's huge because we all have like soccer fields in the backyard. So have you guys considered that? Where are we supposed to put our leaves in the fall? And then in the winter too, like when people probably aren't biking as much, like the snow impact that's going to be going, we have to move cars in and out. Like, a lot of us have to park our car on the street in order to bring the other car out. We're already going against, people going up and down in the schools and everything else. But like, there's a lot of factors in that. And if you guys do go ahead and do this, even if there's, for all of us that are impacted, are you lowering our taxes? Because this is an impact on us and what we are being taken away of what we can utilize for our home.
So I think in terms of the leaves, I direct the DPW department. I could say that we're not going to stop trees from leaves falling and dropping leaves. So the answer is, I think in cases where properties are large enough, you're not going to, in some cases, you're not going to be able to avoid the impact. I think leaves are going to have to be there. I think as residents, it would be wonderful if we could maybe just coordinate better when it's closer to the pickup times for the leaves.
You guys, the leaves, I feel like a lot of you working on it aren't actually on the street. Like there's just a lot going on all the time. So
and some of that's unavoidable.
It is. And the leaves, though, if you see in this one area, it's not just like the normal house leaves in the fall. It's like the whole, and it goes on until, there are no leaves. And then starts again. And all of our trash and I'm just saying these are things to consider for this one area, this of Parker, that is already hit with the school impact with all of the congestion. So it's it's a lot more intense in this area than it is on like up the street in Parker at past Prospect. Also, it's a hill. So like kids are coming racing down the mountain right now as it is. And like, they're not really people aren't riding their bike up the street unless they're really good bicyclists, which there aren't that many. They're really walking the bikes on the sidewalk up the street. So just something else to consider.
Yes, we did talk about the leaves and the snow, and we're going to figure out a plan to address it. You're still going to be able to put your leaves on the street.
Yeah. How about parking for us when we have to move our cars? Like we park in our driveway, but then you have to move a car out to get out. You have to put it somewhere, or if there's construction or the landscapers who they have to park on the street when they're doing our yards, there's nowhere else for them. Where are they supposed to park?
Yeah, those are going to be conversations that we're going to continue to have with both the police and the DPW to figure out how we're going to give instructions for that. They're not going to be able, and you're not going to be able to park in the bike lane, but we're going to talk about it. We understand that there's some issues there.
And what about our taxes?
No, the answer is no, we're not going to reduce them.
You're not going to reduce our taxes, but you're taking away something. So you can't reduce
Well,
anything.
we're
You're
adding,
looking
you know,
at-
I guess it depends how you look at it. Some people think we're adding, some people
the
think we're
town is
taking away.
adding it, but it's impacting us. We can't have people, people come over to our house. They can't park on the street where this is a park. Like it's
So-
kind of a nightmare for the people.
So
living
the,
on the
so,
street.
so the answer is that if in fact, anything we do impacts the selling of the house, then that will
Yep.
be reflected in the next revaluation.
I'm sure it will.
Okay,
Thank you.
Daniel. You're good.
Oh, hello. Is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you for this really amazing proposal. I am really enthusiastic to see progress in the bike master plan. I just have a question on the the width of the travel lanes. I see some areas are 10 feet and others are wider. Is there any reason we cannot be consistent throughout the entire street to be as narrow as possible? Because I'm concerned about the really high speeds people travel across town, and having 10-foot lanes will help kind of control the speed of those vehicles.
Pat, you want to take that
Yep.
too?
Absolutely. So the first iteration of this plan really provided those 5-foot bike lanes we discussed consistently throughout the corridor, but the cartway itself isn't a consistent width. So really whatever's left was dedicated back to the travel lanes. Could they be narrowed up to 10 and provide wider bike lanes in those locations instead? I think that's definitely something we could take a look at. And then in some locations, the center line's not quite in the center of the road. It's, this is surprisingly expensive just to move that stripe a couple of inches. So we're trying to hold the center line where it is. But if we can expand the bike lanes a little bit to keep the lanes narrower on a more consistent basis, I think that's a good suggestion, something we can take a look at.
Yeah, that would be amazing because from a cyclist perspective, 5 feet might be fine, but you're close to the gutter and some conditions might necessitate you from getting too close to the middle of it. So having a wider bike lane and keeping the travel lanes 10 feet throughout will be a massive, massive help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Craig?
Yes, thank you. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I applaud the effort to roll out bike lanes in Maplewood. I focused a fair amount on biking in New York City in various capacities. And I also applaud the focus on the Columbia High School area as the first node that you're addressing for two reasons. One, there are lots and lots of students and maybe teachers who are and will continue to be taking their bike back and forth from school, regardless of what the township does in this regard. And personally, we live right up the street from Columbia High School on Prospect Street, 6 houses in from Parker. So I think working on this is important. However, I think the project as it's been presented tonight is constrained in a way that leads to a less than desirable result. I think the engineers have done what they should do to look at Parker as a bike lane possibility, potentiality. But I think more importantly is considering better alternatives. I think the way you opened it up, in my mind, exactly explains why Parker, going all the way up, taking this as an integrated whole, is not a good choice because there are many nodes of high volume traffic, um, which we've seen in efforts to calm the traffic, install traffic signals, install stop signs because there is a high volume. Similarly, on Prospect Street, we've seen a very high volume. We've seen accidents, uh, unfortunately, for school children crossing. I think a better approach conceptually, instead of trying to have bike lanes that share the road on roads that have high traffic volume, is to see if there are suitable ways to implement the admirable concept of complete streets and rideable neighborhoods that make use of other streets that don't have as high traffic volume. For instance, Prospect Street, I think, is a bad choice of a bike lane as opposed to Summit Avenue, which is parallel. Summit has much less traffic. There is actually signage for bike lanes on Summit. I think trying to put it on Prospect would be a mistake. Similarly, I think, for example, and obviously this is just ideas being thrown out, raised here, siphoning the traffic from Columbia High School off onto North Terrace, away from Prospect, and then perhaps on other parallel streets, further, we have Elmwood, and although there's some wiggles to get to it, Midland is really ideal. It's a low traffic flow. Uh, and my basic point is that I think the engineers are doing a very technically astute job of addressing safety of bike riders and traffic flow, but I think it's a very suboptimal and not very creative approach. I think we should be looking at other streets that recognize that there's going to be parking in front of Columbia High School, picking up, dropping off. There's no getting around. It's never going to change. We're not going to want to be arresting people for doing it. And going up Parker, the nodes that you talk about will have the traffic. And I think there are parallel streets, and having one or two turns that make the bike lanes, although not as neat and linear, will lead to much safer approaches.
Okay, thank you. Rob?
Hi there. Rob Howley. I live on Richmond Avenue, a few houses off of Parker. First off, I want to thank the township for taking on the important task of making Parker Avenue safer for all road users. Complete streets are crucial for building a safer, greener, and more equitable community. As a resident, parent, and person who bikes everywhere with his kids, that includes in the winter and whatever, um, I support this project, full stop. So I take this particular section quite often, whether it's like heading to the village, daycare pickups at the Y, or, civic duty, voting at CHS. Um, the fact that Parker is high volume is what makes it good to invest in. It's an efficient route to get around town. And if we can make that route safer for everyone, then we can alleviate a lot of problems. My main concern with the proposed design was around the pickup drop-off by CHS with cars being in the lane that would undermine the value. So I'm really thrilled to hear that, we're looking at doing bollards, flex posts, or some equivalent. Because if we're going to invest in safety, we should follow best practices and do what we can to actually make it work. I know I personally would not like to have to swerve into traffic when it's at its busiest to get around an illegally parked car. Right now, I just ride in the middle of the lane because that's currently the safest. I would rather have a designated space off to the side, and cars, I'm sure, would prefer to have me out of their way. And as was mentioned earlier, this is also like putting in protection for the section of the of the road. It was good for cars and pedestrians as well because it'll improve the sight lines for drivers seeing pedestrians. We've already had a CHS student hit pretty recently by Academy on Parker. So like I'm sure they would have appreciated better sight lines. And if you're a driver, I do drive sometimes. When someone's parked, like doing a like throwing the hazards on, thinking they can do whatever they want, you have to move over into oncoming traffic to get around them. And then as a driver, that's also not great. Um, and the concerns around speeding on Parker are huge. But a recent study, I guess now 2 year old study out of Rutgers, said putting delineators on bike lanes reduce max speeds by up to 28%. So if you really want to address speeding, it's not, we'll never have enough cops to arrest everyone. So it's like, to put some flex posts up. It's way more scalable. So
Okay, Rob.
I hope you pursue that. It's great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Kate?
Hi, I live right on Parker Avenue. I'm really excited about this project. I just wanted to ask quickly something you touched on in this stretch right off Maplewood Avenue. So it sounds like there will not be road widening. It will be working within the existing streets and it won't be impacting sidewalks and front yards.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, Christina? Nope.
Christina, but it's I'm just using her computer. But I wanted to raise a point around the high school because I was a high schooler who tried to bike, and I often found it rather like dangerous. So I really do appreciate like this proposal, and I want to support it. I would strive to have more protection around the high school with things like ballards, because I mean now I'm doing urban planning at Rutgers, and I think that like from the studies that like I've seen and been a part of, they really do help safety. And then I also wanted to address the thing I think someone said about bike lanes on side streets like Midland or Summit, and that it's kind of difficult because you don't really need a bike lane as it stands right now along those streets, because there's just not enough traffic to really demand them. And then also those streets are a bit limited, where they kind of they end at a certain point. And the reason why you also want to have bike lanes is because people are, for obvious reasons, going down the most trafficked streets already. So they want to have a form of protection on those trafficked streets that is currently not there for people like myself. And then also another person made a point about not being able to go up and down the hills or like, but I mean, with the advent of like e-bikes, and I mean, I see plenty of cyclists do frequent those streets with no worries whatsoever. But that's all I want to say is
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug?
Yes, hi. Thanks, Vic. So I want to speak in support of the bike lanes, and I want to thank the Township Committee and the administrator and the engineer for taking the initiative on this. I commend the effort to, first of all, the bike lane plan, which I hadn't seen before, as well as to implement the bike lane plan. I did have a couple of comments. So for one, bikes need to be able to make left turns. So the bike lanes are good as shown on the plan for going straight or making right turns. But perhaps some bike boxes would be helpful at intersections for making left turns, particularly at heavily trafficked intersections like the one that jumped out to me was Maplewood Avenue, but also Valley Street and Academy, as well as other high traffic intersections. In terms of the travel lane width, this is a street I think that school buses use on, so while a narrower a narrower lane width is helpful for traffic calming. We also have to be cautious about when buses pass each other that they don't clip their mirrors. I think at one point New Jersey Transit was recommending a minimum lane width of 10.5 feet, but probably dynamic traffic could verify what the current minimum recommendation is for that. And again, that's just to avoid the buses clipping each other's rearview mirrors. One thing I wonder about too is at Valley Street. I don't know if there's a planned improvement for Valley Street by the county as they're improving other intersections. If they are, this might be an opportunity to install a bike signal as part of this signal, a separate little signal for bicyclists to use. This next thing is less about bikes, but more about efficiency, is that I've wondered whether a barn dance type crosswalk situation would make the intersection more both safer and more efficient. A barn dance is where all the cars stop and it's all pedestrians, not just to cross the street corner to corner, but to cross diagonally across the street so that pedestrians only have to cross one street, so they're crossing fewer streets, so they're in the street for less time, which gives the cars more time, more green time. Someone would have to obviously do the calculations to see if that makes the intersection more efficient. I'm not sure that it would, but I just thought I'd bring it up. So again, I commend the effort. I've worked with Dynamic Traffic before. It's a great firm. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Doug. Jason?
Yes. Hello. Sorry. Yeah, y'all can hear me, I assume. Okay, excellent. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly speak out in favor. I'm very glad to hear about this. Again, I live on the east side of town, very close to Parker. So this would have I think, very positive impact to my family. My children are in middle school now, but they would be able to ride their bikes to Columbia, which would be fantastic if they could do that, and to be able to do it safely. I also think that we have a tendency to think of car infrastructure as like natural or God made or something, but it's not. We made decisions to make everything revolve around cars, and it's had very negative impacts on being able to get around without a car. It's literally killing us and the planet right now. And so I mean, just in a holistic level, like cutting back on car infrastructure is probably a good thing to do. And I think if we can get more ways for people to get to Columbia, it would actually cut down on the drop-off traffic. We wouldn't need as many cars there. So I think just on that level would be great. And again, I do understand some people's frustrations. I just think that I've lived abroad in places that have bike lanes, and it dramatically improves the quality of life, I could say. And I'm glad to have that in our town. Thanks.
Thank you. Ken?
Yeah. Hi, thanks. This is a great presentation. I have a couple points. One is about the high school. It was like the first point I had. I'm in favor of the bike lanes, by the way. In terms of the high school, that is a concern. I don't know if it's possible to actually move all the bike racks for the school to the east part. So it's completely separate from all the pickups and drop-offs, because I think that's going to be a Herculean task, and it's only going to tie up that traffic between the school and 7-Eleven. So I don't know if this has been presented yet to the high school, but if they could actually move where the kids go to their bike racks, that probably would alleviate a lot of those issues. Otherwise, will this affect the jitney stops that are on Parker?
I have to say, we didn't talk about that. It's a very good point. We'll have to, yes, it will. We'll have to figure that out.
Okay, because I ride the jitney. I'm near Borden Park. And then Patrick Downey, you mentioned about the speed limit. It's 25 right now. He said it's a little bit above average from what you've done before or seen. So when will you know if the speed limit's going to be changed?
So it's not necessarily that we would be looking to change the speed limit. It's really to through a systematic design improvements, bring the travel speeds occurring more in line with that speed limit. So right now, what we're seeing, the averages range between 24 to 30, depending on location. The 85th percentile, which is a popular design metric, is 28 to 34. So the upper end of that is getting to be almost 10 miles per hour outside of what the speed limit is, through narrowing the lanes, additional emphasis on pedestrians and cyclists. We're hoping that number comes back down.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Alex?
Hey, good evening. I just want to thank everybody for this really thoughtful presentation, and the effort that the council is making towards making our roads safer. So I'm actually one of the statistics. 2 years ago, I was hit by a high schooler on Parker who was pulling into the faculty parking lot. I was in the middle of the lane. I think someone else said, you take the middle of the lane when you're on Parker because it's the safest thing to do. And I'm a pretty experienced cyclist. The kid legitimately probably, he said he couldn't see me because of the congestion from all the illegally parked cars. And if you look at that corridor right now, during school hours, it's basically illegal to stop or stand, or idle, I think is one of the signs, although most of them are pretty sun damaged at this point and could use replacement, which I think this project would do. I think there's a lot of really great stuff here. Everyone's made a lot of really good points around that as well. I just have a couple of other suggestions or considerations for the group. The first one is I would strongly encourage a leading pedestrian interval at the traffic signals. That would allow cyclists and pedestrians to cross ahead of the cars. And I would also, if it's not already a law for the town, to make it legal for cyclists to use the LPI. New York City implemented this and it made intersections a whole lot safer. The second thing would be I didn't see it specifically on the proposal, but to revisit the top of Maplewood Avenue and Parker. Something like a lot of folks have said this, but like, these improvements ought to make it safer for all road users, including drivers. Frequently, drivers are driving into oncoming traffic because they cannot judge that turn for whatever reason. So some kind of alteration to keep them on the right side of the road would be great. I have been I drive and bike. I've been in my car and almost been hit several times by people making that turn. Another suggestion for consideration would be at Parker and Prospect. We've had crash after crash after crash. I live a few doors down on Prospect by Parker. I would strongly encourage us, the town, to ban right on red for that whole intersection. Right now it says right on red when children are present. I can tell you no one is looking to see if children are present before they decide to make a right on red. And I believe cars going around other cars to make right on reds have contributed to a number of accidents. To address some of the other concerns, like we need, when you reduce road volume, it has the effect of reducing the number of cars on the road. I know folks have made the suggestion to somehow redirect traffic to the side streets. When you reduce the volume of the roads, it will have that effect, which this project should accomplish. And roads like Summit are already generally pretty safe to bike on because they have natural traffic calming measures, like they're staggered, they have a lot of stop signs. So that's already in place. And I also really appreciate the thought that's gone around addressing and around Columbia High School, protecting that lane, because the drop-off situation definitely needs to be remediated. I've talked to kids who are biking to school. When I was laying on the ground after I was hit, a bunch of kids actually came over to me and they were like, "You have the right to be in the road," which like at a really bad moment kind of made me like a little thankful when I didn't know if my ankle was broken, because like there's other kids going through this. We really owe it to our kids and family members to protect them as road users. Because like even if you are a driver, if you don't bike and you just walk, that area is super dangerous. It's more dangerous than a lot of intersections in Brooklyn and Manhattan. You may not realize it because like it feels smaller, but it really is. And these measures should make it a whole lot safer. Believe me, you do not want to be in a car accident. You have to use insurance from your car company, which sounds as bad as it is. And if a kid is hit or someone that's like not lucky to work at home like I do, it could have like a life-altering effect for them, both economically and if they have to, God forbid, take painkillers or anything like that. So again, I applaud the work that the town's done. It seems really thoughtful, but I would also appreciate it if you could take those suggestions under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmen?
Hi, how are you? I am almost a 30-year resident of Maplewood, and I live up the block from Columbia High School. So I think that the bike lane is going to significantly impact the residents of especially those within the Columbia High School area. I am not against bike lanes. I think they're very good for the community and for the environment. However, I think that the area around Columbia High School should be exempted in some way from the bike lane situation. I'll tell you why. Like I said, I've been living here a very long time. I have seen a lot in front of Parker Avenue. I have not been able to get out of my driveway. And I don't have the benefit of a very long driveway. I have basically a 2-car driveway. I have to go out to move my car, and I have to echo a lot of the concerns that Brian had spoken about, and also Mr. Miller about looking at alternatives to routes for the streets. First of all, Parker Avenue, and I understand that you would like to have this done to sort of lessen the speed of cars, but that's not really going to change. I have seen cars speeding down here. There used to be a time when the police would actually stop frequently in front of my house because cars and drivers are speeding down. As someone who has been very involved in the community, I worked for the township for SOMA 2 towns. I've been president of PTAs. I have noticed that Parker Avenue is a very busy street, right? It's very busy. Cars are zooming down, and just today, I saw a young man get out of the parent's car, fling the door open, and heaven forbid there would be a bicyclist coming down. That bicyclist would have been thrown onto my lawn, because that is what happens here. If you have any understanding of what what the traffic is like here in the mornings, for Columbia High School, you would know that this is a disaster waiting to happen, that kids are going to get hurt. When you come down from Parker, crossover Prospect, going down the hill, you can barely see what's in front of you, and there have been accidents, right? I think that's a consideration. First of all, there's poor lighting on Parker, but you know what? The most important part for me, and I know that there are others who support the bike lanes, and many of whom I'm hearing from do not actually live on Parker. As a Parker resident, I think that there has to be some compromise here. The compromise should be that residents should be allowed to park during a certain time during the day. Right now, the parking is from 9 to 11 and 1 to 3. What you're proposing, or what this plan is proposing, is 24/7 no parking. And I think that's very unfair to the residents, to the homeowners on Parker Avenue. It affects their market value. Okay, and that's important to us. And I think that right now this plan is compromising the interests of the residents, especially those around Columbia High School, for the benefit of maybe 40 or 50 bikes. And we don't even know if those 40 or 50 bikes are students riding down Parker Avenue or they're coming from other parts of town. The other reason that there is low, I heard that one of the evidence for choosing Parker Avenue is that very little parking activity. Well, if you come here between 9 and 11, no one's going to be parked because they're following the rules. If you come here between 1 and 3, no one is going to be parked because you're following the rules. So 24/7 prohibition against parking in front of my own home, where the surrounding streets provide no parking. Let's say Academy, the Board of Education, that's all Board of Ed parking. There's no parking there during the day. On North Terrace, the parking is also limited from 9 to 11 and 1 to 2. If I need work on my house, if I need to have people visit me for whatever reason, right? Medical, we have to think about seniors too, right? They cannot be driving and parking in a certain area and walking up, especially if it's snowing, especially if the weather is bad. So I think that, like I said, I support bike lanes. I think it's great, but I think that bike lanes around Columbia High School, because I think we're the only ones that affected this significantly, as opposed to those over on the other side of Prospect. So I really would hope that this is not a done deal, because I have seen that before, where you have community input and then it's done anyway. But last thing I want to say is that I really did not appreciate the short notice of this meeting. I got a letter on Wednesday on my porch, and then on Friday an email. Fortunately, I'm very tech savvy and I read emails. But at this point, I think that you may have a low response rate here, mainly because of the lack of notice or adequate notice for this meeting, which will significantly impact the residents of Parker Avenue, specifically Columbia High School.
Thank you. Kate?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to voice my support for the bike lanes. I bike all around town. I have an e-bike. I bike with my daughter on the back, and I have a son who goes to Columbia and who bikes there all the time. And there's a lot of kids who bike there, and there should be more. I mean, part of the reason the traffic there is so bad is because some kids aren't choosing to bike or walk or do other active ways to get to school, and anything we can do to encourage that would be great. So I'm strongly in favor. Parker is the right place to put this in because it's not safe to cycle on the busy roads, and that's where you end up going. You're going to go the most direct route. It's transportation, right? It's not recreation. So you want to make them as safe as possible. I think, we're behind here in these towns when it comes to this stuff, and it's actually going to hurt our property values at some point that we don't have better bike infrastructure, because a lot of people are coming to expect it as part of a safe, walkable, green community. So I am strongly in support. A couple more specific recommendations. More protection and more bollards. Those, just painting the road on the line on the street, it does not give you a lot of protection from a car. And I'm very, worried when I have my daughter on the back that, we're not visible enough. Someone's not going to see us. Someone's going to make a mistake. So having any additional visibility or ideally physical protection you could put would be wonderful. It really makes all the difference. Someone mentioned it, but bike boxes at the intersections, especially on, coming up to Prospect going east, because if you're on a bike and you have a heavy load on the back, sometimes it's hard to get going if you're on an angle and going up a hill. So a bike box would allow you to be able to turn left and would give just a little bit more safety, a little bit more space there. And my other suggestion is maybe bike parking in a couple different places at the school, rather than all putting, the bikes in one area. Right now, they're all sort of combined in the front, and, people lose things. helmets gets lost, things like that. So maybe there's a couple other places at the school you could put bike parking. And there's study after study that shows that bike lanes are good for local businesses. They help local businesses, help property values. And I think increasingly people who are moving to a community like ours are going to expect a lot more safety on the streets than we have right now. And I'll echo, what someone said earlier, that it's a lot safer. Feels a lot safer to actually bike in New York City to me at this point than it does to bike out here, even though the traffic volumes are much less out here. And that's because we just don't have the infrastructure yet, and we really should. So I commend you all for taking this important step. I hope it can be part of a bigger network that the towns build, connecting to SOMA, and I hope we can give people other ways of getting around that are fun and healthy and less impactful on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Terrific. Yeah, thanks for the presentation, but listen, I'm a homeowner on Parker Ave. I live on the north side of Parker Avenue, just shy of Prospect. And everything I hear from this plan, it's apparent that the losers here are the residents. We're the ones who are not being considered. I've heard during your presentations more than twice this idea that that bicyclists have the legal right to use the road, and they do. I'm not anti-bike. I'm not anti-bike lanes, but before this plan goes into place, and it sounds like it's going to go into place, you guys need to seriously consider the impact it's having on us, as Carmen mentioned and Brianne before her. For instance, what are you guys going to do for homeowners who still have oil heat and have the oil trucks pull up to fill up their tanks? What are you going to do with the Amazon trucks? We all order from Amazon. What are you going to do about the Fresh Direct trucks that park in front of people's houses to deliver their groceries? Heck, what are you going to do about the postal trucks who park on Parker and Prospect when they deliver their mail? It sounds like no thought has been given to this. Certainly, it's not being addressed. When we have guests or contractors, they need to park somewhere. And the surrounding streets here on Kensington and North Terrace and Academy, some changes are going to have to be made if this plan is implemented to allow us to park on those streets, or allow our contractors who come and improve our homes to improve the values of our homes and improve the township, for them to come here and to be able to do their work. So the residents, I think, are being shortchanged. I would hope that you would seriously consider doing something for us, because as Brianne pointed out, and as Mr. DeLuca confirmed, something's being taken away from us, but our taxes are not going down. Thank you.
Thank you. We did talk about the delivery. It is something we're trying to figure out. Stephen.
Hi, yes, I just want to echo my thanks for holding this meeting and, all the work that has gone into this and all the thought that's gone into this. I particularly echo what I believe it was Jason and Kate said. I think, especially for Maplewood, I love this town and the progressive values, but I always found it odd that there were no designated bike lanes in a town like this. And again, I also feel safer bicycling in New York City than I do here. Again, it's the lack of infrastructure. So I think that this is a great first step towards making the town safer, more equitable, and more desirable. And to touch on that point again, because it's come up a few times, but you can look up that, or it's very apparent that property values rise with things like bike lanes, greenways, and basically like more pedestrian safety, because that's what people want. They want to live in a safe community where they can walk to places safely, with downtowns, with trains. Like that's what will help raise property values. It's not. I wish the bike lane was actually going past my street, because my house would rise in value too. But yes, I just wanted to echo that and say thank you to everybody working on this to make this a reality.
Thank you. Jen?
Hi, good evening. Again, thank you for this. And we are avid bike riders. We're on Parker further up, so more for the next meeting. And completely, we would bike our kids to preschool in South Orange from Parker. So we're huge proponents of biking. But my concern off the bat is you hadn't thought about the jitneys and you haven't thought about the school buses, the traffic that we've all been in while waiting for school buses to pick up preschoolers, or sorry, kindergartners, while they're waiting for their mom or dad to let them on the bus. It backs up from the high school all the way up to Prospect while that one child is waiting to get on the bus. So there has to be thoughts around the busing. I mean, maybe this integration plan will change if we're going to do more biking. Maybe we don't need as much busing. But I think it's scary to park, ride, or walk on Parker. Your speed numbers cannot be accurate based on what we see. Maybe a little bit up, as you head towards Irvington, they hit the gas a little more, but traffic is going way over 35 miles an hour on this road. And when we have guests come over, we tell them to park on the side streets because I do not trust anyone driving on this road. We have been sideswiped numerous times. So unless there's some kind of barricade, or maybe both the bike lanes are on one side of the street and you build something, but it's scary up here to be on the road. So, but thank you. And I hope these conversations continue.
Thank you. Casey?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. I am a resident of Parker Avenue, and I just want to echo the sentiments from Carmen, Brianna, Craig, and David that, as a homeowner on Parker, this is negatively impacting us. I can completely respect the need to increase safety, but Parker Avenue, as was just noted by Jen, is there's a lot of reckless driving here, and I think congesting those roads more with narrowing the lanes and trying to add more bikes is just going to create more problems. I'd be interested to know if you guys have more kind of specific bike data on the amount of bikers that are experienced on a typical day. I'm also concerned about the jitney stops being taken away, guest parking workers, heck, the garbage guys coming. Where are they going to park their truck when they want to go grab my garbage? Are they going to end up charging me more? And just echoing the concerns of the actual residents of Parker who are going to be impacted, not the others. So thank you.
Yeah, just to be clear, we haven't said we're going to eliminate the jitney stops. We're going to figure it out.
Right. I'm just concerned because they have to stop and not be stopping in the bike lanes, which is just danger to the bike.
Well, we have to figure out something.
I appreciate it. So
Okay.
I look forward to hearing more.
Okay, Josh.
Yes, thank you. It sounds like there's a lot that still needs to be figured out. And I have to tell you, I'm a resident of Parker between Academy and Prospect. And the congestion is unbelievable, particularly in the mornings. I'm often not able to leave my driveway, or it's quite difficult. And I was a little bit surprised when you began by recognizing the problem at the high school and then said you're waiting to hear from the high school about how they're going to solve it. So I just wanted to get your commitment that the next time there's a meeting, there's a response from the high school so we know what the situation is, because that's really the serious part of this proposal. And that's where I fear, people are really going to be hurt. I can't tell you, people drop kids off, they open car doors into what would be the bike lane. It's pretty serious stuff. And I really would like a commitment that we will understand what the high school is going to do about this to eliminate this problem of very congested drop-offs.
Yeah, so we did meet with the principal at the high school, and that was our second meeting, and we've had, a discussion with him, and he raised a number of questions and concerns that we're working through. I don't recall someone saying we're waiting to hear, but we're not waiting. We're working. We're in conversation with the high school. We're going to try to solve this.
Oh, we're waiting to hear how you're going to solve it.
Yeah, we understand that. Thank you. Martin?
I'm a resident of Parker. Just want to chime in here and say I think this is a huge win for families that live on Parker that are raising kids here. You can look just on Zillow in terms of property values. There's a walkability and a bikeability score that's reflected directly in your property values on Zillow. Home buyers are looking for a walkable, bikeable community. They're looking for safe streets. The front yard of my house on Parker Avenue should be a place where my kids can play. We shouldn't be held hostage by dangerous roads. So when I hear people say like, oh, we should do bike lanes on side streets because Parker's too dangerous, I'd really push back. We need bike lanes on Parker because it's too dangerous. So yeah, I just think that Maplewood is a town that's going to lead the way. And if we do this successfully, I think we're going to be setting an example for all the towns around us. And I think it's the right thing to do. So I want to thank everyone for this presentation today. I think it was really good.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who didn't get a chance to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, I see no one else. So thank you everyone for your comments. We heard from 18 of you. And we are, this is exactly what we were looking for, to hear what some of the concerns are. We thought of some of these, the thing on the jitney, I'll be totally honest, we kind of missed it. So we'll be talking about that. But we are going to be having 2 more meetings. As I said, I'm just going to put that up again, just to remind you. We have a meeting next Monday, and we're going to be focusing on the area, which is, again, primarily residential, except for a couple of the religious institutions. And that'll be from Prospect to Boyden. And then on the 24th, we're going to be looking at Boyden to Irvington Avenue Business District. April 9th, we'll be talking about April 15th. And, until we have a decision, we're going to keep talking about it. And it's not a done deal. We're still trying to figure out. I think there's a desire to move forward with something, and we're trying to figure out what makes the most sense. Carmen, you spoke, but you can speak again, but we're going to ask you to be real quick.
I will be real quick. In the event that this bike lane proposal becomes a reality, I would like as a Parker resident for the town to look at where residents will be parking in the area, and maybe limit or eliminate any of the no parking on the side streets so that people can park their cars. I mean, that's an alternative, but my position is that we should do something about not instituting this around the Columbia High School area. And thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, members of the Township Committee, anybody have anything to say? We good?
Nope. Thanks for everybody coming out.
All right. Thank you, everyone. You're certainly welcome to come back on the 10th. Thank you to all of our presenters.
See ya.